Joining us now to talk about it, Katrina Pearson, GOP political analyst and candidate as well in the past, and Joe Lestingi, who is a Democrat political strategist. Thanks to both of you for Skyping in today. And I know typically it's ladies first, but Katrina, with your permission, I'm going to turn to Brother Joe here. The left has been quick to fundraise off the Hobby Lobby ruling. The DNC sent out a fundraising email immediately after the Supreme Court rendered its decision, reading in part, quote, "Today, the court overturned a key provision that protected women's access to affordable health care benefits. After the ruling this morning, we all need to stand up, add your name to Democrats, to stand with Democrats fighting to protect Obamacare." Scott Peters out of San Diego cut straight to the chase with a fundraising mail. He's the Democrat who succeeded Republican Brian Bilbray out there. He wrote, "Please donate $5, whatever you can, to support our pro-choice campaign for San Diego." So, Joe, to you, everyone looks to raise money, both sides off different issues, but will this be a boon for the Democrats?
I think it will, and you're absolutely correct. Everyone wants to raise money off of this because elections do have consequences by the president, and they're approved by the Senate. So elections do matter. And I think this can be a good opportunity. For Democrats to frame their message, especially the one they want to get across to a very key swing bloc, which are women across the country in these key states. And it gives them an echo chamber to build their narrative, which is exactly what they're doing.
So, Katrina, you take a look at this. And I've heard other discussions from people saying, well, the Democrats have to isolate on this issue. And Katrina, former First Lady and perhaps future presidential candidate Hillary Clinton spoke out on this the other week, and she was actually taken to task for exaggerating what this means to women's health. Is this going to help the Democrats in the midterm or hurt them?
Well, I think it's going to hurt them, and I'm really glad that the Democrats want to use this particular issue, considering how they're kind of being smacked around by the Supreme Court right now. So they really are using more divisive issues. And it's not that these women are being denied health. It's not that they're being denied contraceptive. There are 4 out of the 20 that this organization did not want to cover with their funds. These women still have access. They'll just have to pay for it. It's that simple. And when that message gets out to the public, on top of the other encroachments on free speech in this country, I think we will see a shift towards the right on this particular topic.
Well, let's take a look at one key battleground state, the race for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina. Embattled Democrat Senator Kay Hagan had this to say about the ruling, quote, "I'm extremely disappointed in today's Supreme Court decision. It is shameful that a woman's access to contraception is even up for debate in the year 2014. The choice about whether to use birth control should be between a woman and her doctor, not her boss, and no employer should be allowed to interfere with a woman's access to contraception." Katrina, is this going to work? Will this mobilize single female voters in North Carolina and save that seat for Kay Hagan?
Well, no, and that is pending whether or not the GOP can message this appropriately, because it's simply not true. And they need to put this out there. This is just manipulating women, trying to trick women into supporting Democrats on an issue that does not even exist. There is no restriction. They just have to pay for it. My rights did not change one bit after this ruling, and Republicans need to get out there and make that message be known.
Joe, you've got Kay Hagan in North Carolina, down in Louisiana, Mary Landrieu in a state that is heavily Roman Catholic. What impact are we going to see both in the Tar Heel state and down on the bayous in Louisiana?
Well, unfortunately for my GOP colleague there, the record speaks for itself. This was an issue that was used heavily in the 2013 election in Virginia for governor, and the Democrats emerged on top with a huge gender gap. Women, and let's be very clear, and I say this to all of my clients, every election in this country is decided by women between the ages of 35 and 55. That's it. I mean, they are the swing group, and this is an issue that resonates with them. And we're right in that they can get access through the exchanges or through other insurance policies, but they have to pay for it where other people get coverage for free. And if I'm a woman who can only accept one of those 4 forms of birth control, there's a discrimination issue there. There's going to be some 14th Amendment arguments made here. And this issue is going to go down, I think, again in the courts.
Katrina, last word on this. Your response.
20 forms of birth control, first of all. And not only that, but the election in Virginia is not even analogous to what we're talking about, because the GOP was not supporting the GOP candidate, and they were funding another libertarian in the race. So that's not indicative of what we're going to see happen in the Senate.
Just one friendly amendment. I think you're talking about North Carolina, but let me move along here now. To another important issue we need to address, and that is the president's use of executive power. Judge Andrew Napolitano wrote a 4th of July op-ed for Fox News talking about presidential overreach, specifically in the case of the drone strike that killed Anwar al-Awlaki. He wrote in part, quote, "We have gone from an inherited tyrant to an elected one. I've never heard President Obama say this, but it seems logical that if he thinks he can lawfully kill Americans abroad, he also thinks he can kill us here." A stark message. Joe, an inherited or an elected tyrant?
I think that this is just someone who is way off to the right here. This is not a situation where the president is abusing any sort of executive powers or whatever the judge was referring to there. This situation has been debated for years. This man was a terrorist. He was overseas and he happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is what we elect our president to do. We elect him to keep our country safe, and he did that. Ask Osama bin Laden. You know, ask the gentleman that's in custody right now for Benghazi. You mess with us, we come and get you.
Katrina, no less a Republican than Newt Gingrich, made the differentiation, saying enemy combatants may have been citizens, but they're engaged in hostile acts. Your take on the use of drones against American citizens abroad, and do you fear what Judge Napolitano outlined in the op-ed about an attack on citizens here at home via drones?
Well, I agree with him wholeheartedly. I mean, if you have any knowledge of the United States Constitution, elected or inherited, the President of the United States cannot just issue a murder order on a United States citizen. We have the right to due process in this country, for crying out loud. But what makes me more nervous about this whole thing is we had the debate recently on whether or not they can do that right here in the United States. Just target someone and murder them without a trial, without due process, without even having to put up a case. The United States citizen has a right to due process under this Constitution, but I think this administration in particular has made it clear the Constitution has no value to the way he's governing.
A couple of minutes remain. I want to get to a couple of other issues if we can. First of all, very briefly, address this buzz that's around about Mitt Romney in 2016. Katrina, to you first, and then Joe, very quickly.
Well, I think that the establishment is sort of looking at Mitt Romney again, because I think they're finding that Chris Christie is pretty much a non-starter and nobody wants to vote for another Bush. So they're sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel, trying to find someone that could beat out a potential conservative. So I guess that's going to remain to be seen.
Joe, you have to love it when Republicans attack each other. So your take on a Mitt Romney candidacy?
It continues. Virginia 7, Mississippi, and now the presidential nominee. I mean, they continue to fight with each other. Christie didn't pan out. Rubio didn't pan out. Cruz certainly isn't panning out. So here we are back to the old stalwart of Mitt Romney. I more than happily welcome that challenge, and I look forward to keeping hold of the White House for another 8 years after that.
Well, now, pride goeth before a fall, but apart from scriptural admonitions, one other note, veteran Republican consultant and campaign manager Ed Rollins at our parent website, Newsmax.com, was very diplomatic, but basically he said of Dr. Ben Carson, the presidency is no place for an amateur. Katrina, do you share that assessment of Dr. Ben Carson?
Well, I like Dr. Ben Carson. I've met him and his wife, and they're really good people. I'm not so sure he'd make a good president, but I think if he wants to get in the ring, we owe it to him for him to make his case and then judge on Election Day.
Joe, 30 seconds for you on Dr. Ben Carson and the presidency and, quote, amateurs.
Well, I have to say this. Most people don't know who Ben Carson is. And that's going to be a big problem, especially in Iowa and New Hampshire. So I welcome anyone who wants to run for president. That's the beauty of our system. Unfortunately, reality is you've got to be a viable candidate. You've got to have a history and a record to run on. And I just don't think he's got it there.
Joe, I might take polite exception to your characterization of Ben Carson as a, quote, unknown. It appears that he's captured the minds of many, not necessarily traditional Republican conservatives. But we'll leave it there today, and we no doubt will talk about it again in the not-too-distant future. To Katrina and Joe, we thank you for your insights and analysis. And to you at home, what do you think? Dr. Ben Carson in 2016? Another Mitt Romney candidacy? Why don't you tweet us your remarks at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also email and Facebook. America's Forum will continue here on Newsmax TV.